Hello everyone, this is Mr. Underkoffler. Today we're going to be looking at the guide to notes called Order of Operations with Integers. Alright, so let's recall the order of operations. You probably remember this from before. Please excuse my daring Sally. Some people call it PEMDAS. We got parentheses first. That does include any math problem that you find in the numerator or in the denominator of a fraction. Even though you won't visibly see parentheses around that numerator or around that denominator, if there is a math problem in the numerator or in the denominator, then they are considered to be in parentheses, and you will have to do them first. Next up is exponents. After that is multiplication and division. You'll do the step going left to right. And finally, addition and subtraction. You'll do that step going left to right. Also, not necessarily related to order of operations, but it is a rule that we've learned about in this unit, and you cannot forget it. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. And if you are subtracting with negatives involved, you are definitely going to have to use that rule. All right, pencils in your hand. I will do number 1 with you, and then you'll try 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on your own. Here we go. Do we have parentheses? Yes, we do. So we're going to do what's inside the parentheses first. Negative 14 plus 50. Off to the side, we're going to take 50 minus 14. The bigger absolute value must go on top. And we're going to have to do some borrowing. So this 5 is going to become a 4, and this 0 is going to become a 10. And now we will subtract. 10 minus 4 is 6. 4 minus 1 is 3. Who has the bigger absolute value? It is the positive number. So this is going to be positive 36. And since that 2 was next to parentheses with nothing in between, this is 2 times 36. Now bring everything else down. Bring down the negative 18, bring down the minus. What do we do next? Do we do negative 18 minus 2? No. Next thing we look for is exponents. This does not have any exponents. Next thing we look for after that is multiplication or division. And we do have multiplication here or division. So we're going to do this multiplication piece next. 2 times 36. Let's go off to the side. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So that's going to give me 72. Bring down the minus. Bring down the negative 18. Okay. Negative 18 minus 72. How do we do this? Oh, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So first number stays the same. Subtraction becomes addition. The next number, which used to be 72, is now negative 72 because it becomes its opposite. And now we can figure out how to do this problem. Negative plus a negative, we will go off to the side and add their absolute values. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 7 is 9. That's going to give me 90, but negative plus a negative stays negative. I know it's so easy to think 2 negatives give you a positive because that was the rules for multiplication and division. But with adding, a negative plus a negative puts you further in the negative, kind of like debt plus debt gives you more debt. So that's why you got to be careful here with the adding rules and don't get them mixed up with the multiplication and division rules. All right, so that's the problem I did for you. You're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on your own. So go ahead and hit pause now, and then hit play when you're ready to see how you did. Okay, I hope you've already done these problems on your own. Let's see how you did. Order of operations, you got to do what's in parentheses first. Now, over here, there's only one number in parentheses, so that doesn't really count. But here, we got a division problem. That's right, fraction bars mean division. 56 divided by negative 7 is going to give you negative 8. Now bring everything else down. If you want to put a times dot right here, you can. I didn't. I kept the parentheses instead to show negative 3 times negative 8. But if you want to put a times dot instead, that is fine with me. Negative times a negative, same signs, multiplication, is going to give you a positive. Bring down that negative 29. When you have a positive plus a negative, you're going to subtract in your head. That's going to give you 5. But who has the bigger absolute value? It was the negative 29, so the answer is negative. Problem number 3. This one's a lot more complex. What are we going to do first? Well, do we have parentheses? Well, kind of. But there's nothing inside the parentheses except for like one number here and one number here. So really nothing to do inside of the parentheses. But there are exponents right here. So we're going to do that first. Negative 3 to the second. Remember, if you have an even exponent, that's going to give you a positive result. So that's going to be positive 9. Bring everything else down. Now, when you have two sets of parentheses with nothing in between, that means multiplication. So negative 4 times 9, that's going to give you negative 36. Bring everything else down. Bring the 16 down, the minus, the dividing by 2. Speaking of dividing by 2, that's the next thing we got to do because division should happen before subtraction. What is 36 divided by 2? Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you went off to the side. 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down the 6. How many 2's go into 16? 8 of them. 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract, and you get a remainder of 0. So, 18, but a negative divided by a negative, a negative divided by a positive is a negative 18. Bring down the minus, bring down the 16. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. And then 16 plus 18 is going to give you 34. All right, the problem's at the bottom of the page. I hope you followed along and paid attention to the directions. We know that R is 6, W is negative 11, U is negative 9, and X is negative 2. So the first step is to rewrite these problems with the numbers put in for the variables. So RW, that is 6 times negative 11. And then over X means over negative 2. Minus U means minus negative 9. That's right, the U was negative 9. I know there was already a minus to the left of it, and that kind of looked like a negative, but that was a minus, and then U is negative 9. 6 times negative 11 is what you should do first, because if you have a problem in the numerator of a fraction, that must be done first. We talked about that at the very top of the page. Any math problem in the numerator or denominator of a fraction is considered in parentheses, and therefore you must do it first. So 6 times negative 11 is negative 66. Still over negative 2, and still minus negative 9. The fraction bar means to divide. 66 divided by 2 is 33, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Bring down the minus negative 9. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite, and 33 plus 9 is 42. Okay, problem number 5. Let's substitute the numbers in. 7u is 7 times negative 9. Now, I used parentheses here. You could have put a times dot in between instead, and then wrote the negative a little bit higher up so that we don't think it's subtraction. But I used parentheses instead. It's up to you which way you want to show that. Negative r was 6, so that's negative 6 times 8. I just kept parentheses there instead of putting a times dot. Ux is u times x. U was negative 9, and x was negative 2. Again, I used parentheses to show multiplication. You could have put a times dot instead if you wanted. We have stuff in the fraction, so we got to go ahead and do negative 6 times 8, which is negative 48. And then we got to do negative 9 times negative 2, which is positive 18. Bring down the 7 times negative 9 because that was not part of the numerator or denominator of the fraction. All right, now we can go ahead and do the multiplication of 7 times negative 9 and the division. Fraction bar means division for the negative 48 and the 18. 7 times negative 9 is negative 63. Negative 48 divided by 18 is negative 3. A negative plus a negative is still negative. And you're not going to make this out in the opposite because this was not minus, unlike what we had over here in problem number 4. So that's why this one did not have an extra step like number 4 did, because number 4 had subtraction. We made that out in the opposite. This was already addition in between, so we just went ahead and found the answer, negative 66. And finally, problem number 6, the granddaddy of them all. Let's see how you did. U to the second is negative 9 to the second. Did you put that negative in parentheses? I talked about this on the multiplication and division of integers guided notes. When you put a negative number to when you take a negative number to a power, the negative number must be in parentheses. That is not optional. All right, 1 minus x is 1 minus negative 2. U plus 4w, the u was negative 9. 4w means 4 times w, so 4 times negative 11. We have 3 places where we have parentheses. The numerator is considered to be the entire thing in parentheses. The denominator is considered to be in parentheses. And obviously we have parentheses over here. So we have 3 different things we can start at the same time because there's 3 separate places considered to be in parentheses. So let's start up here, negative 9 to the second. An even exponent is going to give you a positive result because negative 9 to the second means negative 9 times negative 9, and a negative times a negative is a positive. 1 minus negative 2, add the opposite. That's going to become 1 plus positive 2. And then in the parentheses, what do I do first? I do multiplication before I do addition. So 4 times negative 11 gives me negative 44. I hope you guys know that if you messed up at any point, you can definitely hit pause in the video if you need time to erase and fix things. Okay, still got parentheses here, and the denominator is still considered to be in parentheses as well. We know 1 plus 2 is 3. Negative 9 and negative 44 is going to give me negative 53 because a negative plus a negative you add in your head. Next up, divide. What is 81 divided by 3? You might not have any idea. So you go off to the side. How many 3's can go into 8? Only 2 of them. 2 times 3 is 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. Bring down the 1. And that's going to make this 21. How many 3's go into 21? 7 of them. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract, you get a remainder of 0. All right, so 81 divided by 3 was 27. Bring down the plus negative 53. A positive plus a negative, you're going to subtract off to the side. This is going to take some borrowing. So the 5 becomes a 4. The 3 becomes a 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. 4 minus 2 is 2. And that's going to give you negative 26. Now, why is that negative? Because negative 53 has the bigger absolute value. And that concludes the guided notes on order of operations with integers. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.